Okay, Nick Huston here for Gotham Sound and Communications, live on the web from our studio closet in Queens. And today we are here with Glenn Sanders and Colleen Goodsir from Zaxcom. How you doing, guys?
Good.
Hey.
So you guys are in New Jersey. How are you passing the time out there?
I'll let Glenn go first.
Oh, okay. Well, we're trying to keep going with product development. We have a smaller staff here in the office, so we're able to keep getting product going, and basically, working on software, hardware, and helping customers that call. I mean, not a lot of people are busy right now, but we're here to help and answering a lot of questions on the web, and just trying to think of new ideas and how people could better benefit by using our products.
And you mentioned something that you were doing personally in the off time. Why don't you show us what that is?
Oh, there you go. You're going to drag me into this.
Yes. Huh? Yeah, we're going to.
Well, actually, I have
interesting.
Yeah, okay. So I have a two-way radio museum, and basically have been collecting old two-way radios, police radios or what were known as police radios before they started using them in production. So this weekend I rebuilt this HT220, which is a 5-watt VHF 2-channel radio. But basically, I've been collecting parts for these things for 30 years. So, I have whole radios, I have, half radios, broken radios, and just, really like to get them in working condition so that you could take two radios that are over 50 years old and they'll still talk to each other. And I think that's cool. And frankly, it proves something, that when it comes to analog versus digital, see, I'm going to relate this. An old analog radio sounds far better than, for lack of a better word, a digital radio. Because digital radio, you got to do digital right, and it goes for handy talkies and it goes for wireless mics. And if you don't do it right, you might as well just have analog, and because it's pretty sweet. Anyway, there you go. So that's that's my hobby, or one of my hobbies.
And Colleen, what about you? How are you making those paintings behind you?
I wish I was talented enough to make these paintings behind me. No, my best friend made these for me. Well, made one of them, and the other one is borrowed, which means it's mine. I have not built any walkie-talkies or two-way radios. My talent does not lie in that field. No, I've just been working from home, doing things on the back end, catching up on projects that I've put off for a long time. And then, doing a lot of yoga. I'm lucky I live next to some woods, so I've been wandering in the woods, just doing reading. I know that sounds really boring, but yeah, I'm that person who does yoga and meditation and reads.
Nice. I think
for a good time.
for a good time. Well, I guess those are both two very analog things. With Glenn, literally with the walkies, and with you with being in nature. But let's get into the new stuff and all the digital stuff that you guys make. So what is it that you want to talk about today?
Okay, well, I think I'd like to start with where we are with our Nova recorder, because from last NAB, we've had a lot of changes with Nova. Of course, many of them are known. Here's Nova right here. I'll hold it up while I'm explaining. But basically, over the last year, Nova now works with Oasis, which is our 8-fader panel with multiple banks. We've also increased the track count to 16 tracks. We've added an auto mixer, which I'll talk about in a second. And next week, we are about to put in MP3 recording. So with the addition of MP3, the Nova will be what I call finished as much as any of our products are ever finished. But, with Nova, we didn't expect to have the auto mixer really, and we never expected it to be a 16-track recorder, nor to have the Oasis. So, I think what we've got here is really, the best solution for sound bag and sound cart when it comes to just a single recorder that's going to do everything. And of course, since last NAB, we did the MRX 414 receivers that convert it into not only a mixer recorder, but mixer recorder that internally receives 8 channels of wireless. So at 3 pounds, 8 ounces, to have all of that gear in the one package, and now including the auto mixer and MP3 recorder. I mean, it's just a tremendous product. And I'll tell you, over the year, if you look at the web, you see people doing range tests that are just mind-boggling. I mean, basically people using Google Maps to show how far they've gotten, as far as receiving multiple transmitters. The noise floor of the receiver is ridiculously low without any interference from the inner workings of the Nova. And over the last year, I mean, Nova has just been spectacular in terms of how it works and what people have been able to do with it, where they've been able to take it. So we're really, really happy with it, and the sales of it have just been absolutely off our charts, and you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, and I know we're we still have a list a few deep to show what the demand has been. So for sure.
Yeah, and Colleen can talk about the sales side and our ability to get them out, which the virus pandemic has been a little bit rough to work with, but we're continuing to ship and what have you. But it's everything's about having suppliers do their job and people here to put them together and test. And needless to say, with what's going on, it's slowed everyone down, certainly. But Nova has, Nova's just been tremendous. So what can I say? So a lot going on there. And the other thing I like, so there's quite a few other things going on. We have a new piece of hardware for Nova, which is the AES Interface Module. This guy gives you actually a little bit more than we thought it would. What you do is you plug this in instead of one of our receivers, and it will give you 4 channels of AES input, 2 channels on each TA5. And we also decided to bring out the RF distribution. So where the RF would feed the receiver that is in the slot, we actually took that and brought it out to SMA connectors, so that if you have an external receiver that you want to run with the Nova, you just plug this in and it's going to interface audio and it's going to interface RF. So a really nice way to get the external AES inputs out to the outside world along with the antenna. So you could plug 2 of these in, and once you do, then you'll have a total of 12 AES inputs on Nova.
Got it. So taking the 4 that it already has and then adding 8 more.
Exactly.
Did I do the math right? Is that
yes,
how that works? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's important to note that on Nova, all the inputs are active all the time. Like in our Nomad product, you didn't have all of them you had to choose. With this, you don't have to choose. They're just all available. So you've got the 4 mic pre's, you've got 12 AES inputs, there's 2 line level inputs. It's actually a total of 18 inputs on this. So there's plenty of inputs to do what you need to do. So, it makes it really good for sound cards. I think the interesting thing about Nova, or one of the interesting things, is how easily it moves from sound card to sound bag. There's no other solution that you could just take the one recorder pull it off the cart, drop it in the bag, and go, you would typically have to have multiple sets of receivers, cart receivers and then bag receivers. But because everything's in the Nova, it's really easy to do that. So you're going to save a tremendous amount of money by going with the Nova and Zaxcom wireless. So that's all really, really nice.
So getting back to the AES input card, how do you have a price and projected shipping time for that? I know things are a little up in the air right now because of the current situation, but any idea on that?
Actually, I'll have to check with the person who builds them, but I'm pretty sure we could get those out within a week.
And
yeah, just so you know, Colleen, because you're not here, actually, there's a good supply of them that I pulled this one.
Oh, there is. Okay, then yes, we could ship those.
We could ship
for immediate delivery.
We could ship it literally tomorrow. So
okay.
No problem there.
And but how much are we talking here?
They are crap. Crap. I'm not sitting in front of my computer because it's not the most colorful place. I believe that they are $250, but are they $250 or are they $295?
I honestly don't remember the exact cost.
Hold on, I'll find out. Okay.
Well, while she's looking that up, we won't bore the audience. So we have a new product coming out, which is sort of a redesign of an old product.
$250. Sorry.
There you go.
$250. I feel like we could do this as an auction. Do I hear $260? Yeah. $275.
$250. So this little orange box, I guess people could get it in orange, but probably we won't want to sell it that way. This is actually the prototype case of our what we call the FTP1, Colleen, I think.
Yeah, this is going to be the FDP2.
2, yeah. So basically, now that we're doing it in the days of 3D printing, we're making some nice 3D printed cases for them. But basically, this is the 35 megahertz wide filter designed for basically sound bag operation, although you could use it on a sound card as well. And what it does, it allows you to take your receivers and transmitters in the bag and literally have the antennas almost touching each other. I mean, the problem that we're solving is any transmitter in a sound bag, especially high power ones, put out a certain amount of, for lack of a better word, low level noise. And, it's just very difficult without filtering to take these antennas, transmitters and receivers, and have them literally within inches of each other. This actually provides a 50 megahertz bandpass notch. So not notch, but a 50 megahertz bandpass. So what I'm going to try to get up on my phone here is something I took the other day, which I wasn't even planning on showing, but I'm going to show it because I think it's important. If I can, yeah, there we go. So basically, that's the bandpass of this filter. So what it's showing you is the 35 megahertz, which it's got a loss of 3 dB, which is pretty typical of these filters, but easily attenuates 50 dB when you're about 30 megahertz away from the center. So you basically would take your link transmitter and put it somewhere more than 30 megahertz away from your receivers. And basically they can work right next to each other without any interference, without any overload, just really good. And this isn't just for Zaxcom wireless. This will work on anyone's wireless.
So if you're doing, you've got a transmitter in the bag and you're getting intermodulation or just interference from the transmitter in the bag on your Talent wireless, you can throw this on. It'll filter down that transmitter and help to knock out that interference. That's
right. Now the receiver has to be able to do a decent job of filtering out the IFB transmitter as well. Zaxcom receivers have the same kind of filter on the other side. So because there's a filter in the transmitter and a filter in the receiver, it does an excellent job of eliminating the interference. Again, other wireless manufacturers do not have the same kind of filters that we use. So, your experience will vary, but this will absolutely make sure that there's no low-level noise floor coming out of our transmitter that's going to be received by other receivers in the sound bag. So, really nice product. It's going to be available in a couple weeks, in literally a couple of weeks. It's pretty close. And I believe, what are we at, $249 on this, Colleen?
Yep.
I think, yeah. So, and if you really want it in orange, we could probably do it. So maybe we'll have to do like a rainbow color thing. By the way, just a note, they are tuned to order. So if someone says, I want it tuned to 600 megahertz, you will receive it tuned to a center frequency of 600. If you want it at 500, you can get that. The range is basically around 470 to 670. So it's a pretty wide range we can tune it to. So, and it's not user tunable unless you have something called a sweep generator and a spectrum analyzer, which I don't think people typically keep around the toaster or blender. So, not a kitchen utensil. So in any case, but that's our new filter antenna. And for anyone experiencing interaction in a sound bag between transmitters and receivers, really nice addition. Not the typical big ass product that Zaxcom would come up with. This is more of a, one of those little glue products that I think are pretty neat. So that's all good.
Out of curiosity, would it work the other way if you were to put that on a receiver and to keep that as a, to tamp down that that band, say wideband receiver, and you wanted to just have it focus in?
That's very astute, I think. Yes, it would work that way. It is a passive filter, so it will work on a receiver. You just plug it into the antenna, and it will narrow down, the bandwidth of the receiver. If it's normally a 100 megahertz receiver and it's getting wiped out by something in that 100 megahertz, you could plug this in and it will totally take the receiver down to 35 megahertz. Every Zaxcom receiver has one of these built in already, so you wouldn't buy it for a Zaxcom product, but you might buy it for other products that just don't have the same type front end that we have. So,
but you would have to, it would not be, it's not self-tunable, as you said. It's tuned at the factory.
No, it's not self-tunable. But, if you're not going out every day, you might have a situation where you're working on set, you're working in the studio, you know where you're going to be. You could do that. Keep in mind, though, that you would probably need two of them because to take care of a diversity receiver, you would want two. So, yeah, but you can do that, which is fine. Okay. So good.
Yeah, so I know, so we've talked about Nova, we've talked about the new FDP2, and the AES module. Now, you were telling me a little bit about what you've been thinking about in terms of how Zaxcom products are well suited, or some of the products are well suited for this new, sterilization era that we're in right now. I don't know if is that the wrong thing to say? I think we all washed our hair today, is what I've been told.
Yes.
The only thing I couldn't get today was my shirt iron. So I'm trying to pull. There we go. That's better.
Yeah, pretty good.
So it's just like NAB. Oh, good. Come on, that was funny. Really?
I'll have my shirts have been ironed like for the last 10 NABs.
I am not sure mine have.
Maybe you're referring to someone else. I don't know.
I just want to shout out my mom real quick. She made this little, I don't know, I feel like I'm in Mortal Kombat from 1996. I feel very
that's amazing.
badass.
I love that it's purple and
it's
blue.
Got a good color.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels good. So good
What'd
job,
you
Mom.
make it out of?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but it's been washed several times, so now it's mostly soap.
Okay.
It's a good thing, though.
It's a good thing.
It smells
Yeah.
fresh.
Yeah. So anyway, back on track. What's the
Okay.
What else did you want to talk about in terms of how Zaxcom is suited to handle
Okay.
not the sterilization era, but whatever it is we want to refer to it as?
So, I guess over the last couple of weeks, there's been a tremendous amount of talk online about how the new reality of how we work with our, with the talent is here. I mean, for people to go out and touch people and be close to people, as we all know, the rules are probably going to change, at least for quite a while. And, in listening to this and then thinking about what we've done, we sort of, inadvertently did all the right things at the right time, totally by chance. So, as we've now started to advertise the ZMT3X, which is definitely a small transmitter. In fact, if I compare it to the regular ZMT, it's really not that much bigger. Okay, it is thicker though. Okay, but not crazy thicker. I would say it's probably about as thick as a traditional older transmitter, but while being a much smaller profile. There's two key things that make this three actually that make this transmitter really ideal. Number one, it runs for 12 hours. So a single charge on the rechargeable battery that if I just pull the back off, it's actually a standard Motorola battery for one of their walkie-talkies called an SL300. So you spend about $30 for this battery and it runs 12 hours. So you can battery someone in the morning and basically just pull it off them at night or have them give it back to you. And that's it. You don't have to re-battery twice or three times in a day. So really great feature because you're going to give the transmitter out and not have to touch it for that reason.
Plus, it can go to sleep during lunch and other times.
Exactly. So with the Zaxnet remote control, you have the ability to put it to sleep. When it's in sleep mode, it only uses 1/4 of the power that it would normally use. So for every hour that it's sleeping, you're going to get, let's see.
You'll get 45 minutes.
Yeah, basically. I should have written that down. It's not too tough to figure out. Yeah, so it's 1/4 of the power. So
right, so it's like 36 hours of standby time.
Exactly. I try to think of it. I'm thinking of it backwards in terms of how much more standby time you get. You get 4 hours of standby time for every hour that you would have used it. So it's really really nice when it comes to that. Of course, with the remote control, you're able to remote control it from a great distance. With Zaxnet, all of our current recorders have built-in Zaxnet. The Nova, the Diva 24. So you can have 8 of these on 8 talent and just simply remote control the game from 100 feet away. And that's because Zaxnet is an RF remote control, and there's no Bluetooth, which is notoriously short distance, and there's no acoustic control, which is also notoriously short, kind of like me. Come on,
good one, Glenn. No, that was good.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the self-deprecating humor laugh.
A for the day. A for the day. Okay. Glenn, do you have a TRX LA there to do a side-by-side with it? Readily available?
I don't. The only thing I have handy is a URX. So that's our monitor receiver, and you can see how that stacks up right there.
Mm-hmm.
So besides the remote control, actually, just to finish the remote control, from all of our mixer recorders, we have the ability to do replay and re-record. So if there is a dropout, if there is any kind of transmission interference, and even if you forget to roll the sound card, a number of these things are going to make a multi-track recording. You don't have to jam them by plugging a cable in. I mean, the jam is automatic. You just switch it on, and any number that you switch on automatically have the code. So you're able to use these as a virtual multi-track recording system. And because of that, again, you're not touching the talent, you're not pulling the memory cards. There's no need for any kind of conforming software. All of that is all just beautifully taken care of by the fact that the time code is transmitted to it remotely, by the fact that it can go into record and stop and generate time code accurate matching files to your main recording. And actually, we'll soon have the scene and take in the files as well. We've been looking to do that for a long time. So that's one thing we have to put in so that when you get the memory card out of this, it has everything. There's no extra work to do. It's just as simple as turn it on and use it, remote control the game, get it to replay and re-record on the recorders. I mean, when it comes to the remote control system of Zaxnet, there's just nothing like it. And we are so proud that, we have this as part of our system.
Now, and so for smaller crew sizes and things like that, because of the recording technology, you conceivably could just prepare the mic, leave it there, as we were just talking with Caleb for Bumblebee, prep the mic, prep the lav, or prep the transmitter, leave it there, and have some kind of remote instructions for the talent to mic themselves and have it record all day.
Absolutely, you could do that. How they set up the logistics of working with the talent, that's going to be for each production to figure out what makes the best sense for them. Mm-hmm. The third aspect of this, by the way, that I think is super important is the fact that it is very, very moisture resistant. The only place any kind of water could get in is around the mic connectors, of which you can see there's 2 microdots on it. You can try to get the light just right. There's 2 microdots. We actually have the antenna connector gasketed, but because the microdot connectors have a knurled finish, typically, they're tough to seal. So the point is that you can actually really go to town on this thing because the battery compartment is gasketed, and then internally, the whole electronics compartment is also gasketed. In fact, the outer case is a hard nylon-filled material, very, very rugged, and the inner part is rubber. So the electronics is actually floating in like a rubber bathtub in there, for lack of a better word. So this is going to be very water resistant. And there's also a little rubber plug for the card slot as well. So because it has this immunity to liquids, and when I say moisture, I mean, if you're going to clean it with alcohol or whatever you're going to clean it with, it's not going to get inside. So, disinfecting it, constantly is not a problem. And unlike metal cased transmitters, there's no corrosion. The only metal is just just on the antenna. I'm sorry, not the antenna connector, but the mic connectors, and they're gold plate. So you're not going to have any issue there. So when it comes to moisture and the way things kind of have to be, I think it's really quite good. So, while we're not saying that this is the only transmitter you would look at, if you are concerned about the current situation and trying to touch the talent as infrequently as possible, then this is the transmitter. Obviously,
and so it'll hold up well against sweat as well because of those same things.
Oh yeah, that's precisely the reason that we designed it to be this way, so that you could put it into a wet atmosphere and not worry about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're pretty good with moisture on our other transmitters, but they're not waterproof the way this almost is. And I
Mhm.
say, you know, the word waterproof has a connotation of submergible. It is not submergible. I think weatherproof is the appropriate term. So Colleen sometimes gets me on this. No, she's saying
Yeah, obviously I can't
we
take my knife out and stab anyone from where I am, so
no,
Which-
well,
I'll just shake my head.
Was the siren
but
from
what-
your background, Colleen? Speaking of stabbing people?
No,
Oh.
they haven't caught me yet. They don't even know what they're looking for.
yeah, I just want to make sure that we properly portray this as, you know, again, not submergible, but
Right.
to have very, very good resistance to moisture.
Mhm.
So that's all.
And I want to just, since there was a question about this earlier, I just want to show off. I have a ZMTX and a TRX LA.
Ooh.
So you can see side by side. There we go.
There you go.
One in front of the other. It's really weird
They
to
look
watch.
like friends. That's so cute.
They are. Yeah, it's a little family.
yeah.
Yeah, so you can see the ZMT is shorter and not as wide. It's a
You can
tiny.
see how much. See, if I hold this close, you can see how small they are.
Yeah, and this is a tiny bit thicker, but
Oh, yeah.
not
I'm
too
trying
much.
to relate it to yours, but anyway.
Is it working? I don't know. Great, we did that. There is a question, Glenn, about how humidity affects it, and will it affect the nylon part?
No, not at all. The nylon filled material is really, really immune to, you know, a lot of things. I mean, humidity. I mean, you want to talk about water. I mean, there's no effect of water, so there'd be no problem with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So there's a few more things. What I want to talk about for a second is basically the RX12s. So there's two versions of RX12. Each one will take 6 receiver modules. And the reason I bring this up, this happens to have none in it. I just grabbed it off the production floor. But the reason I want to talk about these things is that if you now plug in an MRX414, you can actually receive 24 channels of wireless, okay, in this package, meaning you can receive 24 separate transmitters, and it outputs 12 AES pairs to do it. So, you know, which you can also take and go into a Dante converter if you want to ship it out on Dante. I mean, it doesn't have Dante inside, but you do come out of these 6 TA5 connectors with AES. So this would be the smallest format, largest count of receiver product you can buy. Nothing else is going to give you 24 channels in something that, you know, is basically half the size of typical things that'll receive 2 or 4 channels. So it's really just quite extraordinary. And we also have the rack mount version as well, which is called the RX12R, which has also been upgraded to 24 channels. And with these receivers, we've updated the software on the Diva 24 so it can display and control the 24 channels of receiver right from Diva 24. So that's a nice thing we did for this year as well.
So a couple of questions that we got online about that. You know, is there a plan to do a Dante module for RX12 or RX12R?
I guess it would be best. I would love to answer questions about future products, but unfortunately, I can't do it, or Colleen would just kill me. Right?
It's true. You know, I don't have it within arm's reach, but I could show you what I'd bring to work.
Yeah. I'm sometimes.
And then you would be scared.
I'm very afraid. I'm just very, very afraid. So I would love to talk about upcoming products, but I just cannot.
Okay.
The only thing I can say is, you know, we're always building products, and we're not here to let people down. We will build the products that people need to buy, want to buy, and
they might just take a little more time at this interesting time in the world.
Yeah, so, I would say stay tuned. The world is running at a slower pace than it used to. I wish it wasn't, but but there are things happening. Everyone should know that.
And then another question was whether or not the RX12 had the same built-in 35 megahertz filter that the Nova does, and the
It
mic plexer.
Absolutely does, yes. So when you have an RX12, you just set a center frequency for the filter that will accommodate all the channels of wireless that you need to use, which is pretty easy to do. With our wireless, basically, you can space your channels as close as 200 kilohertz, which again is an industry-leading product, so that in a megahertz you can basically get 5 channels of wireless. So it's pretty dense packing of frequencies. And again, let's remember that there's no need for any of the programs that are typically used to calculate intermods and what have you. When the Nova or the Diva 24 choose frequencies, it doesn't care about intermod. It just makes sure that it has the proper spacing between channels, and that spacing is going to work out with the real world scan you just did. There's actually quite a few videos out there on social media of people showing how to scan and then instantly refreak all of your transmitters that are on Talons. And that's all done in easily less than a minute. So again, another great feature of Nova when tied to Zaxcom wireless, or Diva 24 as well, I believe.
And now another question, lots of questions. Have you guys actually tested, maybe not real world, but in your shop having 24 channels of wireless transmitters and receivers going through an RX12 or RX12R?
We have customers doing that right now, and we certainly have tested multiple transmitters and receivers, and there's no problem, there's no interaction. There can't be. Without any intermodulation, it's not a problem. The only thing with our system that you have to do is keep the transmitters more than about 3 feet from the receiver, which is not an issue. At less than 3 feet, we can see a little overload. But in any practical situation, it just works great in that, there's no crosstalk between receiver channels within single MRX modules, and there's no crosstalk between modules in a frame. So, you could run any infinite number of receivers you wanted to run. All you have to do is basically just set them down and plug them in.
And I'm not asking you to name drop, but in terms of the people that are using, the 24 channels, do you know what markets they're using those 24 channels in? Because it certainly is, the airspace is pretty dense.
I'm not going to give any names of the customers, but we do have.
It's LeBron James, isn't
Reality.
it?
Yeah, Reality rental shops and what have you that put it out. So,
more, I don't really care about the names. More, I'm curious about is like what cities and what locations, if you have that information, where you could just say, oh yeah, in New York or in LA or in wherever.
More so in the UK than in the United States, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of people. I don't know off the top of my head people who are using all 24 at once, but there are definitely people in the States. It's just more so overseas than here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a reality market thing, which we are in. It just, for some reason, whether it's because rental houses have large inventories of the older gear, that tends to be what they rent. So we've got to get more of the reality shows to realize what we do.
American reality shows.
Oh yeah,
I'll correct you with that.
Yeah, if American reality shows went to the rental houses and said, "You have something that records in the pack. You have something that I don't have to touch all day. That that's remote controllable. that I can have a 5-pound sound bag where they're normally wearing 20-pound sound bags. I mean, I think if the customers had the reality shows had a better idea of what Zaxcom does, they would be all over the people that are renting the gear to say, that's what I want. I mean, basically, I think that, it's tough to educate those customers, especially, when they have sound supervisors that have worked with a lot of gear from other manufacturers that just, are not doing what we do. And, for some reason in Europe, they are, much quicker on the uptake to realize the benefits of what they can get with our gear, and basically have gone with it in a bigger way. And I really hope that what happens here in the United States, can emulate what's going on in the UK. And maybe it's our fault for not being able to reach these people in a way that they can really realize what Zaxcom and the gear that we produce can do for them to improve their shows.
Maybe more self-deprecating jokes would help.
Okay.
No. Okay. Fail.
I got nothing.
Fail. Okay.
I thought that was good. I liked that.
So a couple more questions from online, and I guess we'll start to wrap things up. So Jim asked if the filter in either the Nova or the RX-12 is bypassable. Just wondering, thinking that 35 megahertz could be tight for 24 channels.
It's not tight for 24 channels, but we can make, and it plugs in, wider filters. So if a customer has a requirement and says, look, I want the filter to be 50 megahertz wide, 100 megahertz wide, whatever they want, we can do that and make it tunable. So we have been asked for that before. None of that's a problem at all. It's just special order. But I will tell you that 35 megahertz has come out to be a pretty good number where, there's enough frequency space, especially, with our transmitters not needing to be spaced that far apart, that it works very well. But absolutely, if someone was interested in purchasing our products and wanted a wider filter, we could absolutely do that.
Mm-hmm. And there are a couple other questions, just based on what you said about if the transmitter gets closer than 3 feet, that it could overload the front end. One person said, "Oh, is there a way to program a relationship between the Nova and the transmitter so that if it senses it's in that tight of proximity, that it just drops down?" And then another person asked about remote control of the output power. Now I know that you can adjust the output power on the transmitters automatically. You've got a low power mode on them.
Right. We actually have a patented feature called Power Roll, which when the recorder rolls, it actually ups the power on the transmitter to make sure that the transmission is going to be as reliable as possible. And then, of course, when you cut or stop, it drops the power back down. That was a big deal on our TRX LA transmitters that go to 125 milliwatts, because it actually saved about 50% of the battery life. Maybe not quite, but
well, now that was with the LA2. The LA3 max power output is 75 milliwatts, and the power roll is only in the LA and the 743. It's not currently in the ZMT3 or the X.
Yeah, that was just an LA. That was just an LA feature, as Colleen points out.
Yeah, LA and 743.
Yeah, but the answer to your original question is we absolutely have the ability to sense the overload and turn the transmitter power down. We're not doing it at this time because, frankly, with the 3 foot distance, it really just does not come up in reality because you're just not standing that close to your talent. The other thing is, even though you're experiencing overload, it doesn't stop that channel from receiving. The only thing that it might do is cause receivers that have no transmitter to listen to to possibly hear the transmitter that it's not supposed to. So even though you're overloading, you're not losing anything. You're actually sort of getting a phantom receive on a channel you're not supposed to. And again, if you had 4 transmitters up and they were all, 3 feet away, 10 feet away, varying distances, you'd have no problem. The system will not let you down. It just technically is an overload condition that I'm not crazy about. But it's not going to interfere with you receiving the 4 transmitters that would be received by a single module. So, and there's another thing I'd like to talk about if we can, unless there's more questions on the gear specifically.
I think we got to it so far. So yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, I was on a group of, I was on a social media group that a lot of post-production people were on and sound mixers were on. And the topic came up of compressor and limiter distortion, 32-bit files versus 24-bit files, and where people get into trouble. And, the people in post-production were talking about, like, well, how do you deal with compressor distortion? And, I'm going to be actually speaking about this going forward. But since we're here and there's an audience of people, I thought I would talk about it for a few minutes. All of our products have never clip inputs. And never clip inputs are basic extended dynamic range mic preamps, where we use 2 A to D converters, and that extends the dynamic range from approximately 116 to 120 dB. It gives you an extra 20 dB of headroom. So you're not going to clip until you get closer to 140 dB of dynamic range. Well, it's impossible for a microphone to actually output that much dynamic range. Hence, you can't clip, hence never clip. So the point is, if you don't clip your mic preamp, with all of our recorders, and generally speaking with our wireless, because they also have never clip preamps, you're not going to have limiter and compressor distortion as you would with gear from other manufacturers. Now, the great part about our mixer recorders is that they're all floating point internally. What that means is that, once you get through the mic preamp, internal to the recorder, you're not going to clip. The only place you can clip is on the output, which is a fixed point 24-bit format, which is determined by the fact that there are 24-bit files out there. The one thing that was clearly unanimously agreed upon in this group was that currently post-production does not want 32-bit files. And, to a certain extent, that's too bad, because 32-bit files, there's a benefit to 32-bit files. But they're not ready for that. That's fine. What we did quite a while ago was come up with something we called never clip attenuation. What that is in the recorders, you can actually set an attenuation amount that takes advantage of the fact that, a fixed point file is 144 dB, okay, which frankly is a tremendous amount of dynamic range. When you utilize never clip attenuation, it actually just gives you more dynamic range on the file that you're sending to post-production. So instead of that file having a typical, 20 dB of headroom from 0 dB, because there's full scale and then 0 dB is equivalent to minus 20, you can actually get another 24 dB of dynamic range. So it allows post-production to still use fixed point files, but eliminates the problem of having to have compressors and limiters on the outputs to stop clipping, or limiter distortion, compressor distortion. You just don't have that with Zaxcom products for this reason. So, for the sound community, for the sound mixer on the cart, all you got to do is just, utilize one of our wireless or mixer recorders with never clip. Make sure that, your mix is properly adjusted with your faders, that it sounds right. and just dial in some never clip attenuation onto the ISO files, and you're good to go. You're not going to have any limiter, compressor, or distortion, and the dynamic range they're going to have in post is just going to be tremendous. So, I think, like I said, I don't think people are quite aware of, what NeverClip can do and how our products, whether they be wireless or whether they be mixer recorders, can, really solve this problem of having this kind of distortion. And the thing that I want to point out is that once you distort your mic input, whether you clip it, whether it's limited, whether it's compressed, whether it's companded, whatever it is, your ISO track is all of those things. The ISO track is not going to get rid of that kind of thing. With our thing, the ISO tracks are perfect and pristine and can really be used to fix problems with the mix track or to remix it the way post-production wants to. So that's just a real benefit to Zaxcom products, and I thank you for allowing me to pontificate for a few minutes.
No problem. There is one question about that. Does NeverClip have any effect on the electronic noise floor?
No, not at all. Basically, the noise floor is determined by the quality of the A/D converter, which in our case, let's say on Nova, it's 120 dB converter. It's the best converter we use. So the noise floor is going to be from clipping minus 120. But because there's another converter that's used, we have to add 20 dB of that to that, because you could go above full scale by 20 dB, giving you the 140 dB. So the noise floor is not affected, and the audio is perfectly combined between the two converters, so that there's no distortion when you're going above that 120 dB of the first converter to the second converter. So, we've had NeverClip out there now for about 10 years, I think 10 years. It's a patented function of ours, and there's people that use our products that are just absolutely, they just won't use anything else, because it truly is very unique and it works very well. And the only other thing I want to add, and it's not related to that, is we've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback on the auto mixer. Just people are ecstatic about it, because we basically, wrote the auto mixer ourselves. It's very similar to other industry standard algorithms, but we put on all 18 sources to the auto mixer a configurable downward expander that actually limits the noise on each input independently. So not only do you get the auto mixer, but you get a noise reducer on each channel. So the combined mix is really, really, really good. So it's just a difference.
Got it. All right. So quick recap. So we've talked about the MP3 recording coming on Nova soon. That feature. We've talked about the AES input, slot input for the Nova. We've talked about the waterproofness and long-term recording of the ZMT-X, as well as 24 channels in one 1.5 rack or small device with the RX12 and RX12R. Did I miss anything as the recap? Oh, and that Glenn builds old radios, literally walkie-talkies, and Colleen does yoga and reads. Is that right? Did I get it all in a nutshell? This is me in a nutshell.
If Colleen was really good, she would show you how she can stretch some part of her body that no one else can do.
No comment.
That would be really weird and creepy, but yeah.
But not untrue.
Okay, so two more quick
By
questions.
the way, I'll be dead tomorrow, so...
Yeah, exactly. She did talk about knives.
Actually, take you guys.
Uh-oh, where are we going? Out to the shed?
Where are we going?
You never know.
We never know. So while Colleen's taking us somewhere, two more quick questions. NeverClip applies to the transmitter card file and not the real-time output of the transmitter, or both?
Show you what I'm bringing to work tomorrow.
Uh-oh. Booze!
Oh.
Hooray! Oh, there's... Oh, my God.
That's that.
Should be very
There you
afraid.
go.
Very mature of me.
Should be very afraid.
Never clip applies to both. In a Zaxcom transmitter, actually, the transmitted audio is identical to the recorded audio. It has to be, or in post-production, they wouldn't be able to replace the dropout with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very important feature of our patented system, that you get the same audio in two locations, both body worn and on a separate recorder. And so yes, the answer is yes. It will be never clip on both.
And then another question: can the NR be used independently without the auto mixer?
Not currently. And
What
we
was
might
the question? Can the Nova recorder be used without the auto mixer?
No, noise reduction, I think.
Oh, noise reduction. I'm sorry, I didn't know that's what that stood for. I'm like, what?
You and me both.
Yeah. So the answer is not currently, but we could look at that. Well, actually, let me think about that. There might be a way around that to use it. I'd have to look into it. So it wouldn't be tough to do if we don't do it now.
Got it. Okay. Well, Glenn, Colleen, it was so great to see both of your faces and the places where you are.
Too.
Thank you. I look forward to. Oh, you go.
Well, you
Glenn.
guys need to stay safe over there.
Yeah, we're doing everything we can. Like I said.
I'm sorry.
Got your fancy mask. I was going to say, we're both in the epicenter of all this crap, New York and New Jersey.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry we're going to miss the Gotham Sound post-NAB wrap-up extravaganza.
Yeah, we're sorry. We're going to miss it too.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll make up for it somehow. I'm sure I'll come over, and as new products are available, I'll sit down with you and Peter or both, and we'll go through it. I know we presented a lot here today, not as much as I wanted to, but that'll be your only clue that you ain't seen nothing yet.
All right. I get the feeling that Colleen is going to start threatening you soon. So on that note, we'll sign off. Great to see you guys. Stay healthy. Stay safe. And
you too. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And for Gotham Sound and Communications, you can watch this video and more on the archives at gothamsound.tv. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter for all the latest sound news. And you can send ideas or questions to info@gothamsound.com, and we'll reply. Take care.